Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. In this video, I discuss the popular claim that New York is going to drown because of global warming. In 1988, NASA's top climate expert, James Hansen, predicted that lower Manhattan would be underwater no later than 2018. Hansen's 1988 prediction didn't work out very well, but that doesn't stop climate alarmists. They're right back at it. They say sea levels are rising faster than they have been in 28 centuries and that New York is going to drown. So whenever I hear an expert forecast, I like to look at the actual data to see if it makes any sense. Fortunately, NOAA has a tide gauge right in Manhattan. What it shows is that during the Civil War, sea level at New York was rising 2.8 millimeters per year. It also shows that in World War I, sea level at New York was rising 2.8 millimeters per year. In World War II, sea level at Manhattan was rising 2.8 millimeters per year. During Vietnam, sea level at Manhattan was rising 2.8 millimeters per year. And at the present, sea level at Manhattan is rising 2.8 millimeters per year. So what would happen if we reduce CO2 levels back to what they were during the Civil War? We don't have to guess. We've got actual data. So let's go back and look at it. During the Civil War, sea level was rising 2.8 millimeters per year, just like it is now. That tells us that if we reduce CO2 levels, it would have no effect on Manhattan sea level. Now let's look at the claim from that article that sea level is rising faster now than it has been for 28 centuries. Well, that's pretty hard to justify because we see that sea level rise hasn't accelerated at all since the Civil War. So we'd have to say that that claim looks pretty shaky. Now let's look at another tide gauge besides Manhattan to see what it's doing. The tide gauge at Churchill, Canada shows the exact opposite of Manhattan. It shows a steady rate of sea level falling, fairly rapidly. Why would sea level be rising at one location and falling at a different location? The story goes that sea level is rising because Antarctica is melting down. But NASA says that Antarctica is gaining ice, so the Antarctic ice sheet would actually be causing sea level to fall. So what's going on here? In order to understand what's going on, let's try thinking like geologists instead of like climate scientists. Let's zoom in on the Earth and look at the big picture. During the last ice age, huge amounts of ice accumulated in Canada and northern Europe. This caused the land in both of these areas to get depressed. If the land in one area is getting pushed down by glaciers like we see in Canada and northern Europe, then the land somewhere else needs to rise up to compensate, sort of like if you press your thumb down into a water balloon. And that's exactly what we see happening. The land along the east coast of the United States and in southern Europe rose up during the last ice age. Now the ice is all gone, so we're seeing the exact opposite happening. The land in Canada is rising, and the land along the east coast of the United States is sinking. This is why the tide gauge at New York shows sea level rising, and the tide gauge at Churchill shows sea level falling. It has very little to do with the oceans, and everything to do with isostatic rebound after the last ice age. The claim that government can control sea level rise is just Dark Ages superstition. In fact, it's worse than that. King Canute understood that he couldn't control sea level, so why don't modern leaders understand that? Visit Toto and Bart on the web at realclimatescience.com. They've been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.